Hello, my dear friends, and welcome back to another useful and heartfelt episode here at English in Fluency. I am so genuinely glad that you have chosen to be here with me today, to share this time, to share this space. In this podcast, we journey together, exploring ideas that help us grow, using simple English as our guide. Today, we are going to talk about something that touches the very core of our human experience. It is a topic that can be both incredibly difficult and profoundly beautiful. It is a concept that holds the power to either keep us trapped in the past or to set us free. Today, we are going to talk about forgiveness. Now, before we go any further, I want you to imagine something with me. Picture a small, quiet room. In the center of the room, you are sitting on a chair, and chained to your ankle is a heavy iron chain. The chain stretches across the floor, and on the other end, it is locked around the ankle of another person. This person represents someone who has hurt you deeply, and so you sit there, day after day, chained to them. You cannot walk away. You cannot run. You cannot be truly free, because you are bound to the memory of your pain. You might pull on the chain. You might yell at the person. You might spend all of your energy fighting against them, but the chain remains. Holding a grudge, holding on to anger and resentment, is exactly like this. It is a prison cell that we unknowingly build for ourselves. But then, you notice something. In your hand, you have been holding a small, old-fashioned key. You have had it all along. This key has a special power. It can unlock the chain, but only from your own ankle. It cannot unlock the other person's chain. That is their own journey. This key is forgiveness. Forgiveness is not about them. It is not about saying what they did was okay. It is about you. It is about you making the brave and powerful choice to use the key, to unlock your own chain, and to stand up and walk out of that room into the fresh, open air of your own life. This topic is so important because, at the end of the day, we all get hurt. It is an unavoidable part of life. People disappoint us. They break our promises. They say things that wound us. Or they do things that feel deeply unfair. And let's be honest with ourselves. We also make mistakes. We also hurt others, often without meaning to. Life is full of these painful, messy moments. And if we do not learn how to deal with them, if we do not learn how to use that key, we can end up carrying the heavy weight of our pain for years, or even for a lifetime. I know that this can feel incredibly difficult. Perhaps as you listen to my voice right now, you are thinking, "But Alex, you do not understand what they did to me. The hurt is too big. How can I ever forgive that?" Or perhaps you have tried to use the key before, but the feelings of anger or sadness keep pulling you back into that room. That is okay. Forgiveness is not something that happens in one single magical moment. It is a journey, a process that we take step by step. And sometimes, it is a journey we have to take again and again. There is no need to rush, and there is no one perfect way to do it. As we move through this episode together, I invite you to stay curious. What does forgiveness really mean to you? What might it look like in your own life? Maybe you are here today because you are ready to think about forgiving someone else. Or maybe, just maybe, you need to learn how to forgive yourself. Whatever your situation is, I hope our conversation today helps you to see that forgiveness is not about the other person winning. It is about you, finally beautifully, finding your freedom. So please, take a deep breath, and let's explore this profound topic together. By the end, I hope you will feel inspired and empowered to take one small step, no matter how small, towards forgiveness in your own life. Let's take a deeper, more careful look now at what forgiveness really means, and, just as importantly, what it does not mean. I believe that this is one of the biggest reasons why so many people struggle with the idea of forgiveness. There are so many myths, so many incorrect ideas out there in the world about what forgiveness should look like, or what it is supposed to mean, that we often become confused, and we resist it. Maybe you have heard people say the common phrase, "Just forgive and forget." But I want to ask you, is that even possible? And more importantly, is it really healthy? The truth is, forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It does not mean erasing a painful memory as if it never happened. And it absolutely does not mean that you are saying that what happened was okay. It does not mean you are excusing bad behavior or pretending that something deeply painful did not happen. Let's be completely honest with ourselves. Some things are simply too big, too hurtful, too significant to be forgotten. And in fact, trying to force yourself to forget can sometimes make things worse, because it can feel like you are denying your own true feelings, pushing them down into a dark place instead of dealing with them in the light. Forgiveness is not about saying, "It's fine, no problem." It is not about letting someone who hurt you off the hook. As we say in English, it is not about letting them escape the responsibility for what they did. People are still responsible for their actions. They still have to face the natural consequences of their choices. Forgiving someone does not change that one bit. What forgiveness does change is you. It changes what is happening inside your own heart and inside your own mind. It helps you to stop carrying the heavy, exhausting weight of anger, of sadness, or of bitterness. You see, holding on to that pain is like being forced to carry a heavy suitcase everywhere you go. Imagine you have to walk through your entire life, to work, to home, to meet friends, with a huge, heavy suitcase filled with rocks. Every single step feels harder. Every day feels more tiring. And after a while, you might even forget what it feels like to walk freely, without that terrible weight on your shoulders. Forgiveness is the simple, powerful act of setting that suitcase down. It is the moment you say to yourself, "I do not want to carry this anymore. I am tired of feeling this way. I deserve to feel peace." In fact, I want you to think of forgiveness as a gift. But it is not a gift that you give to the person who hurt you. It is a profound and beautiful gift that you give to yourself. When we choose to forgive, we are not changing the past. We cannot change the past, no matter how much we might wish we could. What we are changing is our relationship with the past. We are making a conscious choice to no longer let a past event control our present happiness or our future possibilities. Using our metaphor from the introduction, forgiveness is like freeing yourself from a mental prison. When we hold on to resentment, that deep, bitter anger, we are the ones who are locked inside. We stay stuck in the same painful story, replaying the hurtful event over and over again in our minds. But when we choose to forgive, it is like we are unlocking the door of our own prison cell and stepping outside into the fresh air and the warm sunlight. we realize that we can choose peace instead of pain. And that choice is incredibly powerful. Of course, this does not mean that forgiveness is easy. It is not a magic word that makes everything better in one single second. It is one of the most difficult emotional tasks a human being can undertake. Sometimes we need a lot of time. Sometimes we need help. From a trusted friend, a wise family member, a professional counselor, or even just from our own deep, quiet reflection. And sometimes we need to forgive the same person for the same hurt more than once. Because the feelings of anger or sadness can come back in waves. That is completely normal. Forgiveness is a process. It is not a one-time event. It is something that we practice, just like we practice any other important skill in life, like learning a language or learning to play a musical instrument. And the more we practice it, the stronger and more capable we become at it. You might be wondering, if I forgive someone, do I have to be friends with that person again? Do I have to let them back into my life? The answer is a clear and simple no. Forgiveness and trust are two completely different things. You can forgive someone in your heart for the pain they caused you, but that does not mean you have to trust them again. Trust must be earned, and if someone has broken your trust, you are not obligated to give it to them again. You can forgive someone and still choose to set healthy boundaries to protect yourself. You can forgive them and still choose to end the relationship. That is not a sign of incomplete forgiveness. It is actually a sign of deep self-respect. Forgiveness is about healing your own heart. It is not about fixing or changing the other person. And what about the other crucial side of this topic? Forgiving ourselves? Sometimes this can be even harder than forgiving others. We can be our own harshest critics. We can be so hard on ourselves for mistakes we made in the past. We replay those moments, those poor choices, and we feel a deep sense of shame or regret. But just like forgiving others, forgiving ourselves is about letting go of that heavy baggage. It is about saying to yourself, with kindness and with compassion, I am a human being. I made a mistake. But I can learn from this. I can grow from this. And I can move forward. Because if we do not forgive ourselves, we stay trapped in that same mental prison. And we are the ones holding the key. We deserve to be free. We deserve to give ourselves the same kindness, the same understanding that we would so freely offer to a good friend. So, as we continue this important conversation, I invite you to think about this. What old ideas or myths about forgiveness have been holding you back? Have you ever thought that forgiving someone meant you were saying what they did was okay? Or have you ever been afraid that if you forgive someone, you will appear weak or foolish? If so, please know that you are not alone. These are very common thoughts, but I hope our conversation so far is helping you to see that forgiveness is not about weakness at all. In fact, it is one of the strongest, most courageous, and most powerful choices a human being can make. Because it takes immense courage to let go of pain. It takes incredible strength to choose peace over bitterness. And it takes profound wisdom to realize that we are the ones who suffer the most when we refuse to forgive. So, let's continue this journey together. In the next part of this podcast, we will explore in more detail why forgiving is so difficult, and what makes it feel so hard sometimes, even when we know it would help us. But for now, just take a moment. Breathe. Think about that heavy suitcase or that iron chain. What would it feel like to finally set it down? Let's be very honest with ourselves for a moment. Forgiveness, in theory, sounds like a beautiful and noble idea. But in the reality of our messy, emotional lives, it can feel incredibly, almost impossibly, hard to do. Perhaps you have experienced this yourself. You know in your mind, in your logical brain, that forgiving someone could help you to feel better. You understand that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. You know it only hurts you in the end. And yet, when the moment comes to actually let go, your heart just is not ready. It clenches. It holds on tight. Why is that? Why is the act of forgiving so profoundly difficult, even when we consciously know that it would bring us the peace we so deeply crave? One of the biggest and most powerful reasons is the sheer emotional weight that comes with being hurt. When someone we trust betrays us, when someone lies to us, when someone disappoints us in a profound way, it is completely natural to feel a storm of emotions. We feel anger, sadness, confusion, and a deep sense of injustice. These feelings can be so strong and so overwhelming that they stay with us long after the hurtful event is over. And sometimes, holding on to our anger can feel safer than letting it go. Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever held on to your anger because, in a strange and paradoxical way, it made you feel stronger or more protected? Anger can feel like a suit of armor. It can feel like a hard, protective shell that keeps us from getting hurt in the same way again. But there is a problem with this armor. While it might protect us for a short time, it also keeps us closed off from the world. It stops us from healing, and it is incredibly heavy to wear every single day. Another powerful reason why forgiveness is so hard is because of our pride. When someone hurts us, our sense of dignity and our self-worth can feel attacked. We might think to ourselves, "Why should I be the one to forgive them? They are the one who was wrong. They do not deserve my forgiveness." Or we might worry, "If I forgive them, it will look like I am weak, like I am letting them win." Pride is a powerful emotion, and it tells us to stand our ground, to show that we are strong and that we will not be treated poorly. But here is the thing about real strength. Real strength is not about holding grudges. Real strength is about being wise enough and courageous enough to know when to let go, so that you can move forward. Forgiveness does not mean you are lowering yourself. In fact, it is an act that lifts you up, because you are choosing to rise above the cycle of anger and pain. Our desire for justice can also make forgiveness incredibly difficult. When we have been wronged, it is natural to want the other person to understand the pain they have caused, to apologize, and to make things right. But what happens when they do not? What happens when the person who hurt you never says sorry? Or worse, they do not even believe they did anything wrong? This is one of the hardest situations. We can wait for years, hoping for an apology that will never come. We can hold on to our anger, thinking that it is the only way to hold the other person accountable. But in this situation, forgiveness becomes an act of radical self-care. It is the moment we realize that we cannot control the other person's actions or their understanding. We can only control our own response. It is the moment we decide, "I will not wait for your apology to find my own peace." Perfectionism can also get in the way of forgiveness. Some of us hold ourselves and other people to impossibly high standards. We expect ourselves and those we love to be perfect. So, when people inevitably fail us, when they make mistakes, we find it very difficult to accept. We think to ourselves, they should have known better. I would never do something like that. But the truth is, no one is perfect. We are all flawed, complex human beings. We all make mistakes. If we wait for a world of perfect people before we are willing to forgive, we will be waiting forever. Forgiveness requires us to embrace the messy reality of being human. And of course, let's not forget about fear. Forgiving someone means you are making a choice to open your heart again, even just a little bit. And that can feel incredibly scary and vulnerable. You might think, what if this person hurts me again? Or, what if forgiving them makes me look naive or foolish? These fears are very real and very valid. They can stop us from taking that first tentative step toward letting go. But what is important to remember, as we discussed earlier, is that forgiving someone does not mean you have to trust them blindly. You can forgive someone in your heart and still choose to protect yourself with strong, healthy boundaries. Forgiveness and self-protection can and should go hand in hand. Finally, our culture and our upbringing play a massive role in how we view and approach forgiveness. In some cultures, forgiveness is seen as a sign of great wisdom or spiritual strength. It is encouraged and celebrated. In other cultures, people might be taught to never forget and never forgive as a way to show honor or strength. The way we were raised, what we saw in our own families, the stories we heard from our community, all of these things shape our deep, often unconscious beliefs about what it means to forgive. Maybe you grew up hearing that forgiveness is only for the weak. Or maybe you were taught that forgiveness is absolutely necessary, no matter what, which can make you feel guilty if you are not ready. All of these cultural and personal messages can make the process of forgiveness much more confusing and difficult when we try to navigate it in our own lives. So, if you have ever found it hard to forgive someone, please know that you are not alone. You are not weak. You are human. There are many powerful and complex reasons why the human heart holds on so tightly to its pain. But at the same time, you always have the power to choose a new path. The very first step is to understand what is really stopping you. Is it your anger? Is it your pride? Is it your fear? Or maybe it is a complicated mix of all of these things. The more honest you can be with yourself about your own internal barriers, the easier it becomes to take the small, gentle steps toward forgiveness. Steps that are right for you and for your own unique journey of healing. Let's talk now about what really happens inside of us when we choose not to forgive. When we choose to hold on to a grudge. I want you to think about this very carefully, because sometimes, when we feel hurt or angry, we believe that holding on to those feelings gives us a sense of power or control. We tell ourselves things like, I can't let this go. They don't deserve my forgiveness. Or maybe we believe that staying angry is a way to protect ourselves from being hurt in the same way again. But the profound and often misunderstood truth is this: holding a grudge does not protect us. It does not make us stronger. In fact, it almost always hurts us. The person holding the grudge far more than it ever hurts the person we are angry at. When we hold on to resentment, that deep, simmering, long-term anger, it begins to affect both our mind and our body in powerful, negative ways. Have you ever noticed what happens physically when you think about a painful memory or a person who hurt you? You might notice your heart starts to beat a little faster. Maybe your muscles, especially in your neck and shoulders, feel tense and tight. Your stomach might feel uneasy. This is not just in your imagination. This is your body's real, physiological stress response. It is as if your body is preparing itself to fight or to run away from a danger, even though the danger is not happening right now. The danger is just a memory, a thought in your mind. And when we stay in that state of chronic low-level stress for a long time, for weeks, for months, for years, it begins to wear us down. Scientific studies have shown that people who hold on to grudges and anger often experience higher levels of anxiety, depression, headaches, stomach problems, and even high blood pressure. Imagine lying in your bed at night, trying to fall asleep, but your mind keeps going over the same hurtful event again and again. You are replaying the words that were said, the actions that were taken. Your body cannot fully relax. Your mind cannot find rest. After a while, you feel a deep and profound sense of exhaustion, a tiredness that is not just physical, but emotional and spiritual as well. This is the real, hidden cost of holding on to anger. I want to share a story with you. A story about a man I once knew named Marcus. Marcus was a talented and ambitious man who had started a small business with his best friend. For a few years, everything was wonderful. But then, they had a major disagreement about the future of the company. In the heat of the moment, harsh and hurtful words were exchanged. His friend decided to leave the business, and Marcus felt deeply betrayed. He told everyone who would listen, "I will never forgive him." What he did was unforgivable. And so, the years passed. Every time someone in his life mentioned his former friend's name, you could see the change come over Marcus. His face would harden. The tension would appear in his shoulders. His voice would become cold and sharp. He would get upset all over again, as if the betrayal had happened just yesterday. Meanwhile, his former friend had moved on. He started a new business, got married, and was living his life. But Marcus stayed stuck. He remained imprisoned by that painful memory. And over time, this bitterness began to poison other areas of his life. His relationships with his other friends became strained because they grew tired of hearing the same angry story. He became more cynical and less trusting of people in general. He started having trouble sleeping, and his doctor told him his stress levels were dangerously high. And what was so sad, what was so tragic, was that deep down, a part of him missed his friend. But his pride and his anger kept him locked in that lonely prison of pain. I often wonder if he had been able to find a way to choose forgiveness earlier, how much happier, how much healthier, and how much freer his life might have been. And that brings me to a question that I want you to reflect on very deeply. Is that pain, that anger, that bitterness, really worth carrying for so long? When we refuse to forgive, we often think we are punishing the other person. We imagine that our anger is a weapon that we are pointing at them. But most of the time, they are not feeling our anger at all. They may not even be thinking about what happened. We are the ones who feel the weight of it every single day. We are the ones who suffer from the stress and the bitterness. So, who is really being punished? I am not saying that it is easy to let go of deep and legitimate hurt, and I am certainly not saying that we should forget what happened or pretend that it did not matter. But I am inviting you to think very honestly about what you are carrying and about how it is affecting your life, your peace, your health, and your joy. Resentment is like a poison that we willingly drink every day, hoping that it will hurt the other person. But in the end, it only poisons us, our peace of mind, our physical health, our ability to feel joy. All of these things are far too valuable to sacrifice for the sake of holding on to a grudge. As we continue our conversation, I hope you will ask yourself this gentle question. What might change in my life if I could just put down this heavy weight? Maybe it will not happen overnight. Maybe it will take time and practice and courage. But even the smallest step toward forgiveness can help you to breathe a little easier, to sleep a little better, and to feel a little lighter inside. And isn't that what we all truly want? To feel free, to feel at peace, and to live with an open, resilient heart. Now that we have talked about what forgiveness is, why it is so difficult, and how holding on to grudges can harm us, let's explore something very practical and hopeful. Let's talk about how you can actually begin the process of forgiving, especially when it feels completely impossible. Maybe the hurt you experienced runs very deep. Maybe the person who hurt you never said they were sorry, or maybe they do not even seem to care about the pain they caused. Maybe the memory of what happened keeps playing in your head like a movie, and just the thought of offering forgiveness makes you feel uncomfortable, or resistant, or even angry. Please know that all of these feelings are normal and valid. Forgiveness is one of the most challenging emotional journeys a person can take, especially when the pain is fresh, or when the wound has been with us for a very long time. But like any difficult and worthwhile journey, it starts not with a giant leap, but with small, manageable steps. And the most wonderful news is that you do not have to do it all at once. There is a beautiful English saying that goes, "Rome wasn't built in a day." This means that great and important things take time and patience to create. The same is true for forgiveness. The very first step on this journey is to acknowledge the hurt. This might sound very simple, but it can actually be quite challenging. Sometimes, as a way to protect ourselves, we try to hide our pain, even from ourselves. We say things like, "It's fine, I don't care," or "I'm over it." But deep down, the hurt is still there, like a wound that has not been properly cleaned. It is still there, waiting to be seen and heard. When we fully acknowledge our hurt, we give ourselves permission to feel what we are truly feeling. We stop pretending that everything is okay, and we start the brave process of being honest with ourselves. You might want to take some quiet, private time to reflect. You can ask yourself, what exactly am I feeling? Is it anger? Is it sadness? Disappointment? Shame? Betrayal? The more clearly you can name your emotions, the easier it becomes to understand them. And understanding is a key part of healing. Once you have acknowledged your feelings, the second step is to seek to understand them. Try to look at the situation from different angles, not to make excuses for the other person, but to gain clarity for yourself. What exactly happened? Why did it hurt you so much? What personal values of yours were crossed or broken? Maybe it was your value of trust, or honesty, or fairness, or loyalty. Sometimes we feel so hurt not just because of what happened, but because the event touched something very important and fundamental to us. Understanding your feelings does not mean you have to agree with what was done to you. It simply means you are exploring your own inner world with kindness and with curiosity. And that compassionate self-exploration is what helps you to move forward. The next small but incredibly powerful step is to set your intention to forgive. And this is where your mindset becomes so important. Forgiveness rarely just happens by accident. It almost always begins with a conscious decision, a choice that you make in your own mind and heart. Even if you do not feel ready to take any action yet, even if the feelings of forgiveness are not yet present, setting the intention is like planting a seed. You may not see the results right away, but with care and with patience, that seed of intention can grow into something strong and beautiful. You can say something simple to yourself, perhaps every morning. You can say, "I want to forgive because I want to find peace in my life. I may not know how to do it yet, but I am open to starting the process." This mindset of openness, this willingness, is what keeps you moving forward, even when the road feels long and difficult. And yes, the road is often long. Forgiveness is not a one-time event. It is not something you can check off a to-do list and then be done with forever. It is a process. And sometimes you will feel like you are making wonderful progress. And then something, a song, a place, a name, will remind you of the hurt. And those old, painful feelings will come rushing back. That is okay. It does not mean you have failed. It just means you are human. Remember the saying, one step at a time. Every small step you take, every single moment when you consciously choose peace over bitterness, brings you closer to your own freedom. And some days, the step might be as small as just taking one deep breath and reminding yourself that you want to let go of the pain, even if you do not know how just yet. Let me share a simple example that might help you to picture this more clearly. I knew a woman named Sarah who carried a deep and painful anger toward a friend who had betrayed her trust. For years, she refused to even consider forgiveness. Every time she thought about that friend, she felt a wave of bitterness. She would replay the betrayal in her mind, and it would often ruin her mood for the entire day. One day, she had a moment of clarity. She realized how much of her precious energy she was spending on this anger. It was affecting her sleep, her other relationships, and even her physical health. So, she decided to take some very small steps. First, she bought a private journal, and she wrote down everything she was feeling. All the hurt, all the anger, all the disappointment. Then, she began a small daily practice. Each morning, she would say to herself, "I am willing to move toward forgiveness, one step at a time." She did not rush herself. She did not force herself to feel something she did not truly feel. But slowly, gradually, as the weeks and months passed, she noticed a change. Her heart began to soften. The memory of what had happened did not disappear, but it slowly lost its power to control her. She finally found a sense of peace, not because she forgot what happened, but because she chose, day by day, to stop carrying the heavy weight of her anger. You see, forgiveness does not have to be perfect. It does not have to look a certain way. What matters is that you begin, and that you keep going, even if the progress feels slow. Some days will feel easier than others. Some days you might feel like you have taken 2 steps forward and 1 step back. That is a normal and expected part of the journey. Be patient with yourself. The most important thing is to stay consistent. Just like learning a new skill or building a healthy habit, the key is to keep practicing. And with time, what once felt completely impossible can become possible. So, as you think about forgiveness in your own life, I invite you to ask yourself this gentle question. What is one small step I can take today? Maybe it is writing down your feelings. Maybe it is saying a kind word to yourself. Maybe it is simply setting the intention in your heart to begin the journey. Whatever it is, remember that Rome was not built in a day, and your own personal path to forgiveness will take shape, one small, courageous step at a time. So far in our conversation, we have talked a lot about what it means to forgive other people, why it is so difficult, and how we can begin that important process. But there is another crucial part of forgiveness that we sometimes forget, or perhaps that we find it easier to avoid. And that is the profound and often challenging journey of forgiving ourselves. In fact, I believe that for many of us, forgiving ourselves can often be even harder, much harder, than forgiving other people. Why is that? Why do we find it so incredibly difficult to be kind and compassionate to ourselves, even when we know that holding on to guilt, shame, or regret only brings us more pain and keeps us stuck in the past? Let's start by looking at how forgiving others and forgiving ourselves are different. When we forgive someone else, we are making a choice to let go of the anger, the sadness, or the disappointment that we feel toward them. We are saying, I no longer want this person's actions to have power over my emotions or my peace of mind. It is about freeing ourselves from the pain that another person's choices have caused us. But when it comes to forgiving ourselves, the situation is much more complicated. We are both the person who caused the hurt and the person who is feeling the hurt. That makes things very tangled. We cannot just walk away from ourselves. We cannot set a boundary with ourselves in the same way we might with another person. Instead, we have to live with ourselves every single day, with our choices, with our memories, and sometimes with our deep and painful regrets. This is where feelings of self-doubt and shame often come in. After we make a mistake, especially if it is a big one that has hurt other people, we might begin to question our own worth as a person. We might think to ourselves, how could I have done that? Or, what kind of a terrible person am I? These thoughts can be incredibly painful, and they can make it very hard to move forward. The mistake starts to define how we see our entire selves. Instead of viewing it as something we did, a poor choice we made in a particular moment, we start to believe that it is who we are. And that makes self-forgiveness feel almost impossible. Because how can you forgive yourself if, deep down, you believe that you are a fundamentally bad person? Our tendency towards perfectionism also plays a huge role in this. Many of us, perhaps without even realizing it, hold ourselves to incredibly high, often unrealistic standards. We expect ourselves to always do the right thing, to never make a wrong decision, to be perfectly kind and wise and patient at all times. But the truth is, no one is perfect. We are all flawed, complex, and beautiful human beings. We all make mistakes. We all say or do things in moments of anger, fear, or confusion that we later wish we could take back. That is an inescapable part of being human. But when we expect perfection from ourselves, we leave absolutely no room for understanding or compassion when we inevitably fall short. We are often so quick to forgive a friend who says something hurtful when they are upset. We might tell them, "It's okay. I understand you were going through a lot. I know you didn't mean it." But when we do the same thing, we might replay it in our heads for weeks, for months, even for years, punishing ourselves over and over again for not being better. I want to invite you to reflect on this question very honestly. Are you kinder to other people than you are to yourself? Take a moment and really think about that. If a good friend, someone you love and respect, came to you full of guilt and shame about something they had done, how would you speak to them? Would you criticize them? Would you shame them? Would you tell them that they are terrible and unworthy of forgiveness? Probably not. You would likely listen with care and with an open heart. You would remind them that everyone makes mistakes. You would encourage them to learn from the experience and to move forward. Now, imagine offering that same level of kindness and compassion to yourself. What would change in your life if you learned to speak to yourself in the same way you would speak to a dear, beloved friend? Self-forgiveness is not about ignoring our mistakes. It is not about pretending they did not happen or that they did not cause harm. It is about facing our mistakes honestly, learning from them, making amends where we can, and then choosing to let go of the heavy, toxic guilt that keeps us stuck and prevents us from growing. It is about saying to ourselves, with both honesty and compassion, "Yes, I made a mistake, and that mistake had consequences. But that mistake does not have to define the rest of my life. I am more than the worst thing I have ever done." And just like forgiving others, forgiving yourself takes time. It is a process. It is not a switch that you can just flip. Some days, you might feel at peace with your past. On other days, old feelings of regret or shame might come rushing back. That is a normal part of the healing journey. What matters is that you keep choosing compassion over self-criticism. Again, and again, and again. I know this is not easy. Sometimes, the hardest person in the world to forgive is the one we see looking back at us in the mirror every morning. But please remember, forgiveness, whether it is for others or for ourselves, is a gift. It is a gift that brings freedom, peace, and the possibility of healing. And you deserve that gift just as much as anyone else. So as we continue our conversation, I encourage you to gently ask yourself this question. What would it feel like to truly, deeply forgive myself? What would I gain if I could let go of this self-blame and choose kindness instead? And maybe, just maybe, you can take the first small step on that beautiful journey today. Now that we have talked about what forgiveness means, why it can be so hard, and how we can begin this important journey, let's explore some very practical and simple ways that you can practice forgiveness in your daily life. Because here is the wonderful truth. Forgiveness does not have to be a huge, dramatic, or overwhelming event. It is not something that happens in a single moment, where everything is suddenly perfect. Instead, it is something that we choose and we practice, again and again. in small, quiet moments. And just like any habit or any skill, the more we practice it, the more natural and the easier it becomes. The good news is, you do not need to wait for some big emotional breakthrough to begin. In fact, it is often the small, regular, daily efforts that are much more powerful in the long run. One simple but incredibly powerful tool you can use is journaling. The act of writing down your thoughts and your feelings can help you to see them with much more clarity. Sometimes, when we keep all of our emotions bottled up inside, they can get tangled and confused. But when you take a few minutes to write them down on a piece of paper, you can begin to understand what is really going on in your heart. You might want to write about what happened, how it made you feel, and what you wish had been different. You can even write a letter to the person who hurt you. A letter that you never ever send. Just to express all of your feelings in a safe and private way. The goal of journaling is not to make everything perfect with one letter or one page. The goal is to give your emotions a healthy and constructive place to go, instead of keeping them locked up inside of you, where they can cause more pain. Another daily practice that can be immensely helpful is meditation. Now, when I say the word meditation, please do not think that you have to sit for hours in perfect silence, trying to empty your mind of all thoughts. That is a common misconception. Even just 5 or 10 minutes of quiet time each day can make a significant difference. You can simply find a comfortable place to sit, close your eyes, and gently focus on your breathing. As you breathe in and out, you might want to repeat a simple phrase or mantra in your mind. It could be something like, "I choose peace," or "I let go of anger," or "I am healing." These simple, positive words, combined with the calming rhythm of your breath, can help you to feel more centered, more grounded, and more open to the process of forgiveness. Meditation can also be a powerful reminder that forgiveness is not about changing the past or worrying about the future. It is about the choice you are making right now, in this present moment, talking to a trusted person, whether it is a close friend, a wise family member, or even a professional therapist or counselor, can also be a very valuable part of your forgiveness practice. Sometimes, just the act of saying things out loud can help us to process our emotions in a completely new way. A supportive listener can help you to see the situation from a different point of view. They might ask you questions that make you think more deeply, or they might simply provide a safe and loving space for you to express yourself without any judgment. And sometimes, that is what we need the most. Just someone who will listen. If you feel comfortable, you can also ask for advice. But please remember, the goal of talking is not always to find a perfect solution. Sometimes, the simple act of sharing your story helps to lighten the heavy weight that you have been carrying all alone. Another very helpful habit is to practice reframing the story in your mind. What does that mean? It means consciously choosing to look at the situation with fresh eyes, or from a new, more compassionate angle. For example, instead of thinking the thought, "They did this to hurt me on purpose," you might ask yourself a different question. Is it possible that they acted out of their own pain, or their own fear, or their own confusion? Or, if you are working on self-forgiveness, instead of thinking, "I can never forgive myself for what I did," you might ask yourself, What can I learn from this mistake so that I do not repeat it in the future? Reframing is not about making excuses for bad behavior. It is about helping yourself to find a way to let go of the sharp edges of your pain. It is about trying to see the full, complex picture with more compassion, both for other people and for yourself. It is a way of reminding yourself that most people, including you, are usually doing the best they can with the knowledge and the resources they have at the time. Across different cultures and traditions, forgiveness is often seen as a powerful and essential part of personal and spiritual growth. Many traditions include beautiful practices that encourage reflection and forgiveness. For example, in the Jewish faith, there is the Day of Atonement, known as Yom Kippur. This is a special time when people are encouraged to reflect on their actions over the past year, to ask for forgiveness from God and from people they may have hurt, and to offer forgiveness to others. Similarly, during the holy month of Ramadan in Islam, people are encouraged to reflect, to let go of anger and grudges, and to seek forgiveness. These ancient traditions remind us that forgiveness is not just a modern psychological idea. It is a timeless human practice. It is something that connects us to each other. It helps to heal relationships, to build stronger communities, and to create peace, both inside ourselves and in the world around us. The most important thing to remember is that it is the small, regular efforts that truly make a difference over time. You do not need to wait for a perfect moment or a big, dramatic emotional release to begin your journey of forgiveness. You do not need to feel completely ready to do it all at once. What matters is that you choose, again and again, to move in the direction of forgiveness, even if your steps are very small. A few quiet minutes of journaling, a short, peaceful meditation, an honest conversation with a friend, or a single kind and compassionate thought toward yourself or someone else. All of these small acts add up. They help to build a new habit, a new mindset, a new way of being in the world. And over time, you may look back and realize that what once felt completely impossible now feels natural and even peaceful. So, as you think about your own forgiveness journey, I encourage you to ask yourself this gentle question. What is one small step I can take today? How can I practice forgiveness in my daily life in a way that feels true and right for me? Remember, forgiveness is not about changing the past. It is about creating a better, lighter, and freer future for yourself and for those around you. As we come to the very end of our time together today, let's return to that image we started with. The image of you, sitting in a quiet room, chained to the pain of the past. We have journeyed through this deep and sometimes difficult topic of forgiveness. We have seen that the anger and resentment we hold are the chains. And we have discovered that forgiveness is the key that has been in our hand all along. We have learned that this key does not magically erase the past. It does not excuse the actions of others. It does not demand that we forget or that we trust again. No, the key does something far more profound. It unlocks us. It sets us free. So now, as we conclude, I do not want to leave you with a list of things to do. I want to leave you with a simple, heartfelt invitation. I invite you to just look at the key in your hand. You do not have to use it today. You do not have to force anything. Just acknowledge that it is there. Acknowledge that you hold the power to choose freedom over bitterness, to choose peace over pain, to choose to design your own future, rather than letting it be dictated by your past. What would it feel like to stand up from that chair, to feel the heavy chain fall away from your ankle, and to take your first unsteady step toward the door? What would the fresh air of a life without that resentment feel like on your skin? What new possibilities, what new relationships, what new joys might be waiting for you on the other side of that door? This is my challenge and my invitation to you this week. I invite you to take just one small, quiet action that represents your willingness to consider using that key. It does not have to be a big gesture. Maybe you will write down your feelings in a private journal. Maybe you will take a few quiet moments each morning to breathe deeply and simply say to yourself, "I am open to healing. I am open to peace." Maybe you will think of one single compassionate thought about the person who hurt you. Or, perhaps most importantly, about yourself, if you are the one you are struggling to forgive. Small steps like these, they may not seem like much at first, but they are how every great journey begins. They are a declaration. They are you saying to the universe, and more importantly, to your own heart, "I am ready to stop being a prisoner of my past. I am ready to start walking towards my own freedom." Thank you. Thank you so very, very much for spending this time with me today. I know this was a deep topic, and I am truly grateful that you chose to listen and to reflect with me. Your time and your energy are precious, and I sincerely hope that this episode has given you something useful in return, something that will help you to grow and to heal. If you found this conversation helpful, I warmly invite you to come back for our next episode. We will continue to learn and grow together, step by step, at a pace that feels good and supportive for you. Please remember, this podcast is not just for passive listening. It is designed to be an active practice for your English skills. So I encourage you to speak aloud with me, to repeat the key phrases, and not to be afraid to use your voice. That is how real, confident learning truly happens. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would be so grateful if you would consider sharing it with a friend who is also on a journey of learning English or working on their personal growth. And if you have not already, please subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss a new episode. You can also leave a comment or a review. It helps more people to find our community and to join us on this wonderful learning journey. Let's keep practicing, let's keep growing, and let's keep choosing, day by day, to be kind to ourselves and to others. Remember, forgiveness is a journey. It takes time, it takes courage, and it takes incredible kindness, especially toward yourself. But every small step you take counts. I hope today's conversation has inspired you to take that first brave step. I look forward to being with you again in the next episode. Until then, take care and be gentle with yourself. You are doing the best you can, and that is more than enough.